happy note that are being brought to you today by Nautel. They have all the good things that you want to know about in transmitters as well, and service, and they do support every single transmitter they ever made. It may not be pretty, but they make daughter boards and take care of all that. Next Tuesday, on their Tuesday Transmitter Talkathon, their customer support tech, Scott McLeod, joins them to talk about setting things up with the new AUI and the legacy version. So you might find that of interest on Tuesday. And we are going to have, in 2 weeks, I guess Jeff and I are going to sit here and talk about that AUI and some of the things you can learn by using the different features in there. Now, at this point, I am really happy to welcome Tony Peterley from WorldCast Systems to our group. And
thank you, Barry.
I'd like to hear what you have to tell us about monitoring and control advances and what's new.
Okay. Well, Barry and I settled on this topic based on a recent mailing that my company had sent out. We have a number of products. As you know, WorldCast Systems is sort of a conglomeration of Automat, which is the company that I originally started working for in 2005. And Barry, when you have a chance to enable my screen sharing, I'd appreciate it.
Sorry,
so I started working for Automat in 2005, and just before I joined the company, they had purchased a transmitter company called Ecrizo, which has been building solid-state FM transmitters since 1956. Still a big part of our portfolio and a big part of the project that we did with Sutro. Then we also acquired a company called APT out of Belfast, Northern Ireland. They do the audio codecs and other devices to transport streaming content over network connections. And along the way, probably about 2000, we started a monitoring software. And where is my PowerPoint? There we go. Share that. So you are seeing the PowerPoint now. And hopefully you're all seeing the PowerPoint. Oh, no, it doesn't work when I do it that way. Stop share. Yeah, because that crops off a portion of the screen for some reason. There we go. Now share. I'll just share the whole screen. There we go. So anyway, around about 2000, we developed a monitoring software called Broadcast Manager that worked essentially just with our equipment. It accomplished its goal of being able to conglomerate information from a lot of different monitors and sources in a lot of different cities around the country and get all that information into one sort of domain, one window where you could see, you know, at a glance, the status of the network and what was going on. And then we developed a next generation of that we wanted to be vendor agnostic. And it proved to be such a powerful selling point and a popular piece of software that we spun off and created a separate division of our company called Connect, which is part of the WorldCast group, just like Ecrizo and Automat and APT. So Connect is like the parent company. We've got offices all over the world and vendors and dealers. Those are our offices. We've got service centers there. We've got distributors and customers all over the place. Kibio Media is sort of a specialized version of this monitoring software aimed at media outlets and companies and networks. So it's just customized and it's set up a little bit to make it easier for media companies to get the kind of diagrams they want and the sort of displays and equipment that they want to monitor. I'm not going to go through this whole presentation, but this page is noteworthy. These are a few of our Kibio clients around the world. You'll notice in the US, Facebook is a big customer of ours. They're using Kibio to monitor all the equipment in their event spaces, their production equipment. ABC Television, monitoring the transmitter parameters and operation at their O&O sites all around the country. Sutro Tower, they use Kibio as a part of their antenna monitoring and control system that runs all of the RF switches and keeps track of everything that's going on with the tower. In Canada, Bell Media and Chorus are both monitoring nationwide networks of stations. In Europe, the European Union, again, monitoring their video production and distribution systems. Same with Formula One. Facebook, RAI. We just have a lot of customers all over the world using this Kibio software. It's vendor agnostic, and I will spin down here and let's take a look at this slide here real quick, because this kind of describes the concept of what Kibio is all about. So there's monitoring. So you've got the front end of the monitoring, which is the part that the user sees. So there's the dashboard, you've got live readings, recorded readings, you've got dynamic maps, you've got alarms and events. The back office part of that monitoring is the automated discovery process that we use to add units to the system, that unified database that keeps track of all the events and the information, and an automatic configuration. Managing from the user perspective is about looking at the event history, creating and following event tickets and trouble tickets to resolve issues, developing a knowledge base so that if similar issues happen in the future, the fix will be easily found. And then there's a series of back office parts that work behind that as well. And then the final step of Kibio is to control. And that is both controlling your planning, your budgeting, your allocation of resources, but also actually control the equipment in real time, because Kibio can not only retrieve information from equipment in the network, but it can also issue commands and make things happen to restore operations or put in backup situations or backup systems. So that's kind of the overall layout. The other thing I wanted to look at real quick here, this is a tiny fraction of the list of equipment that Kibio can already talk to. So each time we talk to a new piece of equipment, and the latest version of Kibio can talk in many different protocols, be it a Modbus or CAN bus or some other serial protocol. We can scrape and retrieve and set data in embedded websites. We can do XML-RPC. There's a lot of different ways we can communicate with the target equipment. The most common and the first one that we enabled is SNMP. And so anything that speaks SNMP, we can ingest that into Kibio. And so the process of creating what we call a driver is getting the MIB files for that particular piece of equipment and scanning through them and identifying with the customer what are the important parameters to be monitored and what would be normal tolerances for those parameters. And with that, we can create a driver so that that customer and any future customer with that piece of equipment, when they scan their network, it's going to recognize it and say, hey, I recognize that particular transmitter. I already have a driver for it. Here are the parameters that are suggested to be monitored and their relative priorities. And then the customer can then fine tune that or adjust things as they see for their particular transmitter on their particular network. So the promotion that we sent around was, and it's just, looking at, we're actually going to go into Kibio here a little bit, so we'll be able to see these visual analytics and what's going on. So the promotion that we are advertising now is you can get this Kibio software with a license that allows you to connect to 25 different pieces of equipment free of charge. We're just offering that for people to get it and install it and get used to it and find out what it can do for them. And then if they want to expand, add more units to their system, then we can accommodate that as well. We also have a promotion tied in with the Automatic Control Silver. Now the Kibio, the version 3 Kibio that's part of that free 25 package, speaks primarily SNMP. The Automatic Control Silver is a little hardware box that can go in your site and actually has GPIO. So you've got contact closures, you've got relays that you can command things with, you've got 8 analog inputs plus a dedicated couple of temperature probe inputs. So that's a very useful device for interfacing with GPIO and other physical stuff at the site. And then it turns that all into SNMP information that can be ingested easily by Kibio. So it also has its own built-in software, our ScriptEasy software, which is a graphic interface that allows you to program, different events with using logic gates and evaluating multiple conditions and things, and program automatic actions directly into the Control Silver, as well as having access to actions and things that you can do through Kibio as well. All right. Any questions about what we've seen so far?
One
All
of
right.
those interface devices you just showed, that's required at each location.
Well, it depends on what the needs are. If everything at the location speaks SNMP, and the offer that we've made for the free Kibio 25 installation is cloud-based, so you don't have to worry about hosting Kibio on your network. We host it in the cloud, and then the only thing you would have to put in on your network is a small piece of software called an EdgeBot. And it's a very lightweight piece of software. It can run on a PC, it can run on a server, it can run on a Linux box, virtual machine, Docker container, whatever you got. So it's an easy install. We give you the download, you install it on a computer on your network, and then it can push information out to the Kibio in the cloud through your network. So you don't have to open up any ports, you don't have to expose your network at all. Everything originates from the EdgeBot inside your network and is pushed out to the Kibio on the cloud. So that's then from there, then it depends on what you want to talk to at the site. If you want to talk to something that has GPIO only, that doesn't speak SNMP, then you'll need some kind of a translator device like that Automatic Control Silver that can take GPIO and turn it into an SNMP, a piece of SNMP data that the Kibio can read. But we're certainly not the only option, right? There's a whole world of industrial GPIO devices of every description, a lot of which speak SNMP.
You said that the software can look for events and then configure or write, change state of something, like go to a backup transmitter and such.
Correct.
Are you using like SNMP writes? Are you using netconf to do that, or what?
Up to version 3 of Kibio, it is SNMP write operations, set operations.
Okay, are you using netconf as well?
Not as of yet, no. We do have the ability, though, in Kibio to be able to show the user interface, the graphic interface, the embedded website of the target equipment directly, or an adaptation of it as well. So there are other ways to access control functions other than using SNMP.
netconf's a industry standard for networking gear to be able to push out configs and such. I was wondering if you're using that.
Okay, no, it's not that I know of, but it's certainly something we could look into if we think there's a market to expand that capability, and it may be a part of version 4, right? Our no SNMP version of Kibio speaks a lot of different protocols, and it may be that netcom is already in there.
Thank you.
Sure. So this is kind of the welcome screen of Kibio. It's usually a map-based display. It could be a region, it could be a country, it can be a just a single market, one site, multiple sites, what have you. You add new sites on the map as you see fit, and then you populate each of those sites with the equipment that you want. Using the search function here, you can enter a range, an IP range, or you can enter a single IP address, and the Kibio will sniff that range. I'll come back and tell you what speaks SNMP, what it recognizes, what it doesn't recognize. The stuff that it recognizes will automatically be added to that site, and then from there you've got all kinds of the monitoring settings. So there are actually kind of 2 stages of the monitoring setting. The first is in the drivers. So in the drivers, you can see here's our manufacturer list that we have on the left. So say for Roden Schwartz, if we look at Exciter General, let's see what sort of information we have there. So these are all things that we get from the MIB file, from the SNMP information on the Roden Schwartz transmitter. So these are events that are in that MIB file. But we, along with the user, determine what we think are severe, what the severity level of these events should be, what readings we want to get from the transmitter, if any, what actions we maybe want to execute on the transmitter. All that is stuff that we get from the SNMP data on the equipment. So that creates a base driver, which will be applicable to that model of Roden Schwartz transmitter across any and all sites and customers. But once the customer installs it on a site, he also has the option then. So these are the different pieces of equipment that have been added to a particular site. Say if I go to the TV transmission site. So here's, for example, here's a Roden Schwartz transmitter. So the general parameters of the driver, what kind of information that we're interested in, what's going to be an event and that sort of thing, that's outlined by the actual driver settings. Here is where you can set whether you're going to trigger an email on one of these events. If you're going to, you can set it to be a local warning, or if you're looking at a reading, you can set a threshold and say if the reading goes above such a level, then I want to get an email. That's an event. You can change if you think this, the local warning doesn't need to be a major event. You can drag it down here and put it on minor event. That is all done just to this unit on this particular site. It doesn't affect the driver or any other Roden Schwartz transmitter that's on the system. It just gives you a way to fine tune each particular instance of the equipment in the software so that you get the information that you want. So navigation wise, you go from your general dashboard where you can see all the sites, you can see which ones have problems. You can also see them here on the left. Each of these pages on the left is can be a different kind of graphic. If you like, this one's set up to represent the racks in an equipment room, and each of the colored boxes is a piece of equipment that's being monitored. So you can see immediately if you've got a problem, which rack it in and which piece of equipment it's in. If we look at the OB van, that's the diagram of our remote truck. All this is done with the SVG diagrams, so they can all be active and they can all be based on your designs, the customer's designs, and what they want it to look. This is play out and distribution. It's more like a flow chart. We've got the TV set where you can see this one's a 3D type graphic, and we just have indicators, little dots for each piece of equipment that we're monitoring that can give you the status of those. TV transmission, that also is a kind of a flow chart or a flow chart. And these can be, you can build controls into these diagrams as well. So you can construct it so it's going to show you the status, it's going to show you the signal path, and if you hit a particular point on that diagram, it will switch from a main to a backup antenna or whatever other action that you want to program in there. So if we look at let's see, if we look at the Rydell, here we've got an alert on the Rydell right now. It's a critical temperature alert. That one just started less than 5 seconds ago. We can look at the history and see if we have, yep, if we look at it the last hour, you can see that critical temperature. And you can scroll in and out and see the individual events. You hover over it, tells you when that event started, when it stopped. You can see we're getting a lot of critical temperature readings. If we look at the readings, we can see why. If we look at the last 24 hours, we can see that temperature fluctuates quite a bit on that piece of equipment. That's why we're getting those constant alarms. It's just, that's the sort of information that you're allowed to. So that one wanted to pop up a separate website with the embedded display, but the network isn't set up on this demo server to do that. So if you look at, well, so it collects all the events. You can see the events if you look at the history, again, of any of the piece of equipment. You can see the events on a timeline. We also are able to drill down into the embedded GUI. There are some of these on here I believe have some actions that we can look at them. Here's readings on one of the transmitters, history of any outages or problems there. The other thing that is useful about this is that any event can become a ticket. So here you can see the events that have occurred that have not been acknowledged yet. You can acknowledge them in this screen. You can create a ticket. You can assign the tickets to any of the users of the system. And then you can look at the timeline of that event and see if there are any other associated tickets, any other associated events, and you can actually build a timeline of events and what was done to correct each event. So similar events that happen in the future, the user can just click on that timeline and say, oh, here, this happened 2 years ago, and this is the part they ordered to fix it. So pretty handy dandy ticketing system. Another useful tool is the analytics. This is what we call our sunburst diagram. We'll see if it comes up the way I expected it to. Sometimes it takes a while to load. We've got a lot of data in the server. There we go. Yeah, I loaded. So this is, we're looking at the sunburst diagram. So this is one way to see the events and analyze and understand what's going on. From the center of the sunburst diagram, the circles go site. So that's your site, where the event happened, and then you go into the equipment that triggered the alarm. So site, equipment, and then channel, if there's a channel or a sub channel associated with it. And then the outer ring is always the actual alarm. So you can see on each one of these alarms when it started, when it stopped, what piece of equipment was involved. And then you've got all the filters here on the left that say, okay, I want to see only my critical alarms. I don't want to see the others. So here are all the critical alarms that have happened. If we go back, let's go back the last 30 days and see what we have for the last critical alarms. You could set a custom date range using the slider bar up above. So it's all about gathering a lot of information, but also giving you the tools that you need to filter and analyze and understand that information so that you can make budgeting choices. And, you know, at the end of the year, you go and see which pieces of equipment were really causing you the most problems, which ones caused you the most off-air time, you know, what are the events that are really giving troubles to the organization, and you know, direct your resources and your planning to sort that out, to correct that. We also have a timeline view of the events. So you can look at them in a timeline view, and there's an event correlation. You can pick a single event and hit the correlation button, and it'll show you all the events that happen across your entire network at that same time. So you can very easily, you know, drill down and see if there's a root cause, something that's triggering multiple events, or something in another system that may have triggered the event that you're looking at. Of course, all these analytics can all be exported to a CSV file and brought into your own spreadsheets and stuff. So we've gone through the site settings, how we discover the units, the monitoring settings, EdgeBot. That's just when you install the EdgeBot on your site, you would go to the EdgeBot settings and make the connection. We've looked at some of the drivers that we have already. And again, we're, you know, anytime we have a chance to inhale another manufacturer, another set of drivers, it makes us happy, because it makes us a more functional product for everybody. You know, the more equipment that we know how to talk to already. You've got all your general settings, of course, setting up your email servers and all that sort of stuff, so you can get the alerts. It can also send text messages, or even make voice phone calls if you have the modem that's capable of doing that. User settings, you can filter users. You can also filter the access to the information and what alarms who gets by using group settings. So you can establish a group, and then if you put a site into a particular group, then only users who are also a member of that particular group will see the events or be able to access information from that site. So it gives you a way to compartmentalize and control that. Any questions about the generic Kibio that we just looked at, the demo model?
Hey, Tony.
Yes.
Number one, can this output to a CAD system, and also can it also output like into a JIRA system?
Yeah, we have a lot of APIs, so we write custom ones all the time. So we can probably accommodate whatever it is you have in mind. Normally, we're importing and exporting from different databases, other ticketing systems, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, we're always happy to accommodate and try and make things happen.
But can it output to a CAD system? So, because if you're saying, hey, equipment's breaking down, and if you're looking at a diagram, it would be nice if it can actually pinpoint in the wiring diagram or something.
Oh, I see. No, I don't think we go into that level of detail of having like schematics or wiring diagrams for the different pieces of equipment. There would probably be a way to actually store that information as a file in Kibio and be able to recall it as part of the ticketing process. But
no, I was asking about like studio wiring, go to that level.
Yeah, I suppose it's possible. the question is getting, if you're trying to diagnose and troubleshoot studio wiring, you need something that can report the status of those connections to Kibio in some sort of format that it can speak. So it's an interesting thought. Maybe we should talk about that offline. All right, so here we are. We're looking at the Kibio install at Sutro Tower. This is the master view status of their RF status on the tower. And if we go into, let's see, figure out how to make that move out of my way. Move out of my way. Huh. Sorry, my Zoom bar at the top is not getting out of my way so I can see everything here. Okay, so let's take a look at their Kibio. All right, so Sutro's map is a pretty simple one. They have one site. Now, they were originally, they were monitoring some camera positions they had scattered around the Bay Area, but they've pulled back on that for the time being. They're focusing just on the RF monitoring and what's going on in the building itself. So they divided things up a little bit in terms of the tower. So the tower is, that's what contains all of the RF information about the RF switch controllers, and also all of the information about the flow and pressure monitors. They have many flow and pressure monitors to monitor the pressurization of the RF line and how much nitrogen is flowing where. So all that is under the Sutro Tower site. They have a kind of a network site, which is, I think this, oh no, this is their power, right? So this is the house transfer switches. So these actually, they're using the little automatic control silvers, a little remote control device that I showed you. They have a series of those monitoring the shore power and the generator status and the transfer switches and stuff for their power, AC power distribution. Trying to think if that's going to give me a display or not. I don't think their subnets are mapped that we could do that. So, but that's actually an automatic control silver that they're using to pull in all the information from those generators. So they've got the building site here. This is where they've chosen to put their tower light monitoring. So it's a dialight system that we're monitoring with Kibio to keep an eye on anything that happens with any of the tower lighting things. And then there's the automat site, which is a couple of our automat control units that are doing some extra side monitoring and stuff that they didn't want to include in the full Kibio install. So, but it all works the same as the demo unit. If we go back here, we can see the dashboard, and you can drill into each individual site. They didn't do a whole lot with their graphics here. They just wanted to get things up and running. So that's the only one they did a fancy SVG diagram on, was the one that shows the RF status display. So you can see the automat site is the only one right now where we're having troubles. That's the only one where we've got a critical alarm, and it's on this automat control, and it has to do with the dialight. So it's part of their antenna lighting system. They're having a comm error on one of the main modules. Let's see if we have a history of that. Now that comm error has been going on for at least the last day. There we go. So if we look at the comm error, yeah, it's been off and on. They've been having some issues with that connection on that tower light controller for some time. So that's what it is. Let's see, if we look at the dashboard, if we go back here, we can look at the flow and pressure monitors. So again, we're looking at the carbon dioxide or the nitrogen's going into the lines. We should have some readings on the flow. There we go. That's the last 30 days of flow and everything. And I'm trying to remember if we had a remote display. Yeah, that one's got a remote display that we can see directly through the Kibio interface. And then the RF, the switch controllers, it gives you a direct login to the unit, so you can see the status of that switch controller. And if we look at where is KFFS antennas, no general. Nope, brought me to that site again. There's one that's one display that shows you the synoptic, the actual front panel of the switch controller. And I can't seem to find that. So that's the Kibio, and that's the deal. It's the control silver and the monitoring. Again, we've got 2 offers in the works right now. You can buy the control silver and you get the Kibio free of charge, or if you just want to play around with Kibio 25 Cloud, that also is free of charge for the time being. Any questions about the Sutro install? It was a fun project to work on. It was quite enjoyable to be able to visit that site many times during the course of the repack.
When you signed in, you said they had cut back on their videos. Does that mean camera video?
Well, yeah, they had some fixed camera positions around the Bay Area, looking at a couple of the airports and a couple of the bridges. I believe they are still operating those camera positions, but it's not really where their attention is focused anymore. Nobody's using them.
But you can actually get video on this?
Yes. Yeah, you can embed anything you want in these diagrams. It was that they weren't displaying the video by default because they had other ways to do that. They were just monitoring the equipment that was out in those little camera boxes around the bay.
As I see what you're doing, Tony, is this is not to totally eliminate remote control units.
No, it's kind of a shift in where the brains are, right? So the control units at the sites now can be pretty dumb devices. They could be just, simple, translators of GPIO to SNMP. They can be very, very simple, very, reliable, very cheap, because you can have all the brains now in the cloud. And so the Kibio on the cloud can monitor all these devices, these little devices at your sites all over the place, and give you excellent real-time status of everything that's happening in your network. Give you the ability to control the things that you can control, and can also give you the ability to take those actions automatically if certain conditions are met.
That's the kind of question, control. Obviously, many transmitters, codecs, things like that are now available to be accessed online.
Sure.
But some of them have remote control systems that have additional contact closures for anything from turning a light on remotely to rebooting or whatever.
Right.
Will this system need that additional remote control? Is that where the automat comes in?
If they have one already, and we can talk to that existing remote control, then we can just leave that in place and ingest all the information and the functions of that remote control right into Kibio. If they want to upgrade, or if they don't have a remote control in place already, or they need a little additional remote control, some extra contact closures or analog readings at a certain point in their network, then you could look at the automatic control. Or, like I said, there are 100 companies that make RPC or RTC, right? Remote telemetry and control devices. In the industrial world, it's a big deal.
So the largest users would be consolidators or groups of multiple stations, whereas the idea for a smaller operation would be to consolidate studio, transmitter, cameras around the city, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a small operation, if you think about, 25 units, you could probably fill that up at most clusters pretty quickly. If you start monitoring some of the stuff around the studios and some of the stuff at the transmitter site or sites, if there are multiple sites. So, it can have use, and, hey, it's free. So even if it's a small single station group, they may find some usefulness in monitoring the equipment that they have and collecting those statistics and building that, that one panel view of the status of their whole setup.
Very good. I see Tim's got his hand up.
Thanks. I really appreciate the idea of having a way of being able to test this with like 25 devices and such. Is this a recurring pricing, or is this a one-time only thing, or is it?
This is the 25 free is a limited time offer.
I mean, beyond the 25, how does
Oh,
the price?
but beyond the 25, then it's, we actually have a couple of different models. If you want to run Kibio on your own network, you actually want to install the Kibio server on your network, so you can keep it closed off from the internet. We can do that. You can do that either on a subscription basis or a one-time purchase plus a service contract. If you want to keep it in the cloud, that's the least expensive option. And again, you can do that on a purchase and maintenance contract or a monthly service fee for the Kibio cloud servers. And
So-
you pay a couple $100, I think, for each edge bot that you run on your internal network.
Got it. And with the cloud, I assume we're setting up a VPN between you and
Yeah.
whatever the site that we're trying to monitor.
Yeah, we can set it up any way that you like.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
I think the idea of the cloud server is great for consolidating data from all over the place. And besides large owners, it could possibly be used by contract engineers that are servicing a large
Yep.
number of stations.
Yeah, we have several contract engineering services in Europe that are using Kibio and some of our broadcast signal monitors for just that purpose.
And then also the edge bot's an interesting thing. It sounds like it's sort of a bridge between the local network and the cloud server, perhaps
Correct.
converting local SNMP to a continuous TCP stream to the server or something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines. It basically allows us to get information from the network and even send control commands to the network without having to punch any specific pinholes through the firewall on the external IP.
What
Very
is the
good.
cost and what is the break-even point? How many stations do you need to have to come out even on this?
I think the lowest of the Kibio 25, I think, is only about $4,000 a year, I think, for the subscription, the cloud-based subscription. I don't have the prices right in front of me. So it, up to you is, what the determination would be on the break-even cost on that. But we are offering free driver creation. So if there are any pieces of equipment that we don't already have a driver for, we'll write the drivers for you. We'll work with the customer to develop the views and the presentation, so they've got the information they want to see right front and center, and they're getting the alerts that they want from the system. We're doing this because we need customers, we need testimony, we need users, particularly US users, because the broadcast style in the US is a little different than it is in Europe. And so we want to make sure that we're presenting, graphics and examples and opportunities and functions and settings that the US users are going to find suitable.
That 4,000 a year is for how many?
That's for 25 connection to 25 units. And again, don't quote me on these prices. I'd have to double check.
I'm sorry, that's 25 devices monitored or 25 sites?
25 devices monitored.
Oh.
25 target devices.
Could they be spread under any number of sites?
Can be spread across any number of sites. So a couple of transmitters here, a couple of transmitters there, whatever you got.
I didn't see, but do you have Continental's TV transmitters in the MIB files?
What was the name of the manufacturer again?
Continental.
Continental. Let's see what we got here. So if they speak SNMP, I don't see Continental in here now.
Well, I will be delivering those to you shortly then.
Yep. No, like I say, we're always happy to get more MIB files and add another piece of equipment to the driver list.
Hey, Tony, you mentioned the 25 free installation is limited time offer. Does that mean it's a limited time offer to get that going, or it's
Correct.
only runs for a limited period of time before?
No,
turns
it's
to
limited time offer. You need to get your request in before the end of the year.
And and it runs in perpetuity after that?
Runs in perpetuity after that, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Let me reemphasize that for everybody, Tony. Then you're offering them software to monitor 25 pieces of gear perpetually at no cost.
Yes. I'm searching for the for the email now to make sure I know of which I speak. I can't find it.
Will they need, if they have a remote control system in place, obviously that's fine. If they do not have a remote control system in place, do they then need hardware from you to take advantage of those 25?
No, I mean, they can still talk to anything directly through SNMP. If they need hardware, they need hardware to translate the SNMP stuff to GPIO or whatever else they need to do to talk to the equipment that they need to talk to. It could be our hardware, it could be third-party hardware. It matters not to us. One of the things like this one here, these are the temperature and flow monitors at Sutro, and these are all coming from a little box called an X418 from a company called Xilinx, Xylinx.
And what was that box you showed us earlier? That was yours?
That's the Automat Control Silver, right? Similar function to the Xilinx. It's got a few analog readings and a few contact closures and a few relays, and can give you that kind of basic GPIO information. Only it can present it in SNMP so that the server can look at it. So that one is actually not varying around much. What was the one we had troubles with the other day? KDTS. That actually might show some.
That box you showed, but it's got some closures for operating things, analog inputs, metering inputs.
Correct. So here, if we look at KDTS main, we expand that one, and we go back for the last month. No, last week, don't see much. Real-time readings, still 5.3. That one's a little on the high side. Anyway, anything else you want to see while we're here browsing around Sutro, or any other questions about what we talked about today, or anything else in the Automat line or WorldCast?
Quick question. Sorry. I've been using like SolarWinds. I've used Libre NMS in the background for monitoring a number of other
Right.
systems out there. I was really impressed in the fact that this is relatively integrated, not only with actionable things depending on conditions, but a ticketing system. Does the ticketing system support a escalation system like PagerDuty, or is it built in, or how does that work?
Yeah, the as far as escalation is concerned, anybody. I think anybody that has a ticket assigned to them can bring in somebody else, add somebody to the ticket. A supervisor can actually change who's responsible for a ticket. So you've got that escalation possibility. As far as concerning who's going to get what messages based on what time of the week it is, or what time of the day, we're working on that. That was something we had in the old broadcast manager, as far as filtering out who's going to get a phone call, who's going to get an email, based on what system is affected, and whatever other parameters like scheduling.
Yeah, that's been kind of critical, particularly if you have an alert and the person doesn't respond, having it go to the next in line.
Right. Yep, that's really important. So, and that's the kind of thing that we try to listen and try to add into our system as we go along. This can be albeit it's 3-4 years old now. It is the version 4, the no SNMP version, is a vast leap above version 3, which is what we're looking at here. And they're always adding functions and again, listening to the customers and potential customers and trying to build the kind of systems that they will find useful.
Hey, Tony.
Yes.
First off, I think it's great that you've built in blame management, but I want to know, can you schedule in routines, let's say switching transmitters to low power and so forth?
At this point, no. Kivio doesn't have the capability to do scheduling like that. We have that capability in our ScriptEasy software. So if you do have one of our ScriptEasy units somewhere available, and it can be even just that little one, the Control Silver, you can build a full schedule in there for doing all your day and night power changes for the whole year.
What does that little Control Silver unit cost?
It's about $1,400 list. So again, there are less expensive options if all you want is something to convert the GPIO into SNMP. But because it has the ScriptEasy brain inside, and you can program it to take those automatic actions and do scheduled events and all that kind of stuff, it's a powerful little remote control all on its own.
I understand Joel has already downloaded it.
Oh, okay.
Joel, you want to tell us anything about how it's happened so far? Has it taken over your house?
Oh, no, I haven't downloaded it. Just while you've been speaking, I went to your website, and the form to sign up is actually very, very quick. So
And that's for the Kibio 25?
Correct, for that, the limited time offer up to the end of the year. So what happens there is when you've submitted the information and click submit, you'll get an email just to say, welcome to the community. They will reach out to you, someone from their team. In the meantime, like, gives you a link so you can look at the driver library for all of the drivers out there, see what sort of stuff that you already have that will work with it. And it just mentions that you're going to need a Ubuntu or a Debian server on your network.
All right. I'm pretty sure that Edgebot will run on a Windows server as well, but Ubuntu is so much better. Why wouldn't you use it?
You can run it on a Raspberry Pi.
Yep. Run it on a virtual machine. You can run it on a Docker. It doesn't. It's like I say, the Edgebot is a pretty small, light piece of software. Doesn't need a lot.
If I'm not mistaken, the standard OS for Raspberry Pi, formerly Raspbian, now Raspberry Pi OS, is based on Debian.
Cool. Should work out then.
Well, it's ARM based as opposed to x86.
Oh, okay.
So,
All righty
Anyone
then.
Anyone else have a question for Tony before we let him go?
Sure.
I think you've described this very well. It's got some wonderful capabilities. Obviously, if you have just a very small guy with, let's say, a Nautel transmitter or an Acriso transmitter,
Mm-hmm.
or a Crown, which is a Acriso, they can use this, especially right now, the Kibio 25, lock it up, download it, and they can monitor many things that they otherwise couldn't do.
Yeah, that's the neat thing about SNMP is you get a lot more detail on equipment than you could ever get through GPIO connections. And you get to monitor things like, switches and network gear and stuff that you didn't have any option to monitor through GPIO before.
I wonder for AM broadcasters, though, I always come back to automating pattern changes.
Yep.
And do you handle that plus correct conversion when we change from standard to daylight time?
Yeah, actually, as I mentioned earlier, the schedule capability is available in our ScriptEasy software. So if you have one of those little automatic control silvers or one of our other remote control devices, ScriptEasy is even soon, I hope, going to be available as a standalone piece of software. So again, you could dump it on a Docker container or virtual machine or whatever piece of computer hardware you have running along, and have all that scheduling capability and stuff without having to invest in a piece of automat hardware per se. They're not quite done with that yet, but we got a major customer that's waiting on it, so I think it will happen.
Yeah, the thing that always seems to trip them up is they can get the schedule right, but the tricky part is always that the FCC selects times in standard time only, local standard time. So you have to fix it. You have to correct it when you go to daylight saving. Or
we actually built the fix for that into our scheduler. When you set up a scheduler in our ScriptEasy software, You can make the scheduler operate on local clock time, in which case it will automatically change its internal time when daylight savings time, or for things like AM pattern changes, you can set it to GMT plus an offset, in which case it pays no attention to daylight savings time whatsoever.
A competitor, which I won't name, took them 2 years to figure out why the pattern change adjustment was happening a day late.
Or an hour late.
Well, it was a day late. I've always suspected, although they never confessed the sin, I always suspected they were checking for daylight savings time, like at 1 minute after midnight instead of 1 minute after 2 a.m., which would make it exactly a day late. Oops.
Daylight savings time is really a mess because, of course, it doesn't apply everywhere, especially like Arizona. And then every other countries, they do it differently.
Yep,
and,
different times of the year.
Yeah, and there was one country where they moved it so an election would end up in daylight saving time, and then they moved it back. And it's really a mess. We need to just use UTC.
I know when we changed our spring forward and fall back dates a few years back, it was very confusing for the factory in France because they used to move at the same time we did. Then we started moving at different times, and it was a mess.
Well, and the problem here, and it's also a problem I brought up last week with Nautel, is you can set it to non-adjusted time, but the problem is for pre-sunrise and post-sunset has to be local time, and that has to follow daylight savings time.
Yeah, so you would set up in our software, you would set up a second scheduler event for your pre and post authorization times, and you would set that scheduler to operate on the local clock time instead of GMT with the offset.
Another daylight savings time fun problem was a system I designed years ago would change to daylight saving time. No, let's see, I guess it was changed back at 2 a.m. on the appropriate day. It would move back to 1 a.m. And then it said, oh, it's not 2 a.m. yet. So it changed back to daylight saving time. And then it said, oh, it's time to change back to standard time. And it did that for an hour, printing out a log entry every few seconds. So daylight savings time is fun.
Yes.
I also won't mention the manufacturer, but years ago, we had a problem where we couldn't get any data out of our remote control system or control times or things like that. We found out that the programmer never expected a customer in Arizona, apparently, and that's the problem. He didn't have that time zone working in their remote control zone. Well, Tony, I want to thank you so much for coming along for us this afternoon.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity. Always nice to talk to. Before I go, I got to issue one pitch. If anybody knows of somebody, analog FM broadcast, that is willing to try out our smart FM technology, we're actively seeking testers. We'll loan you a transmitter for the testing, help you file the experimental authorization paperwork for the smart FM. We're just trying to collect as much data as we can to hopefully propose a action with the NRSC to make a rule change.
That's a good point, and I'd like to have you come back and talk to us about Smart FM.
You bet.
I think it's an excellent product. I'm amazed that you're able to do so, but then as we talked about, the difference in coverage pattern by power is not as great as most people might think.
Correct. Yep.
Tony,
all righty.
Save a buck.
Topic for another day.
Tony, Mark here in Omaha. I'll get in touch with you. I've got a whole network of the Acreso transmitters. We can do that.
Oh, super.
Across Nebraska.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
We could take a few and set them up that way.
Oh, that'd be awesome. What kind of power levels are you running? A kilowatt, 2 kilowatt?
No, they're low power.
Okay. Yeah, even if it's a low power, you're not going to see that much, financially in the savings, but we'll still be able to calculate how much in percentage you're saving.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's all good. And, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Mark.
You bet.
Hey, Tony, I had a quick question about the free 25 license.
Sure.
Looking at the web page, it looks like it says limited time offer between now and December 31st. The Kibio Perpetual on-prem license for up to 25 devices is free, but I think you mentioned that it was cloud-based. Can you clarify that? Also, how we would go about getting the EdgeBot software, which I think you said was also free.
Yeah, actually, you can. There's should be a link on there when you get your package to download the EdgeBot software for the cloud trial. I'm not sure about the on-prem thing. I'll have to check into that and see. But that if we're offering Kibio on-prem 25 free of charge, that's a big deal.
But that would be going back to what you talked about earlier, being just needing to install that on a server and then.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and then run the configuration, find the units, develop your sites, however you want to configure it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure.
And also, can you tell me again, what was the manufacturer and vendor for that pressure transducer you mentioned they're running at that?
Oh, it was a Xilinx, XYLINX, I think something like that. I think somebody posted it in the XYLINK.
I couldn't find it on the web, so I wasn't sure if I could if I was spelling it right.
Yeah, it's somebody put it in the Tim put it in the chat here. Xilinx, XYLINK. And the actual unit was an X418, and it's just basically it's just a little GPIO box. Got some analog inputs and some contact closure inputs and maybe some relays, maybe not. I'm not sure.
Okay.
All righty.
Very good.
Cool. Barry, thanks again for the opportunity to chat with you all. It's always a fun group to talk to on Thursdays.
We'll look forward to your next appearance with the Smart FM.
You bet. And y'all know how to get a hold of me if you have any questions about the Kibio or the transmitters or the Smart FM or anything else. Happy to help.
Have a great day.
All righty.